If your family needed you in a real emergency, would your body hold up? Would you be strong enough to endure the conditions and the environment that you would need to? Not the everyday kind of emergency, but the kind of emergency where help isn't coming, where your wife may have twisted an ankle and needs to be carried. Your children need to be carried because they've been walking for miles and they're so tired. Food is running out. And up until this point, your training hasn't prepared you for any of this. Hi, my name is Seth. And over the years, I've been in over a dozen car accidents. I was in a disabled state. Doctors told me I would never lift weights again. I would never be able to be pain-free. And they didn't even know how to fix me. And I did what was nearly impossible and rebuilt my body to become pain-free, to be able to become bulletproof and resilient to injury and be stronger because of the fact that I have a duty to prepare and take care of my family. This is what kept me going when all hope was lost. No matter how many setbacks I had, no matter how many flare-ups, I kept pushing forward because my family counts on me. And in this video, I'm gonna teach you exactly what you need to do to become resilient to injury so that you're actually prepared for a survival, life-threatening situation that you may be in. Because the truth is that the gym does not prepare you for that, no matter how strong you think you are, because the gym is hiding weak links. The floor is flat and you do consistently the same lifting patterns in a controlled way every single time. The real world, there's potholes, uneven ground, and training just in the gym and not training your ankle mobility and strength and end ranges, it only takes one wrong step in a pothole when you're tired and fatigued, you twist your ankle and the chances of your survival go way down. It doesn't matter if you can deadlift a lot of weight, that barbell is 9 inches off the ground. When you pick something up in the real world, it's sitting flat on the ground. Also, traditionally, people do back squats to build up their leg strength. And that's a great activity, but it keeps you in a neutral spine. The real world, you're rounding your back and you're trying to pick up something with an awkward grip. And so this puts you in a position that you weren't training for in the gym. And so when you have to pick up something heavy and move it, this is when you tweak your back. And unless you're a hybrid athlete, and bravo if you are, most people don't train all the different systems in their body in the gym. They may be consistent, they may be strong at their specific training regiment or their sport, but rarely do they train all these. And these are such as your tendons and your ligaments and your bone density, your muscular endurance, your cardiovascular system, and of course, the muscles and strength is important, but that's only a piece of it. And of course, mobility is extremely important as well. But many people that actually have mobility, they're actually not strong in the end ranges, which means they're weak and vulnerable when they put themselves there. So if you want to actually become resilient, it is important for you to not only be able to get into certain positions, but be able to be strong in there as well. Think about the twisting your ankle example. Your ankle mobility was not very well. So as soon as you went into that pothole and your ankle twisted sideways, then all your weight gets pushed down to it. And that range that you had, you went into the red, even though your ankle physiologically, you can actually move in that position, but because you were tight and immobile, because your nervous system was protecting you, all of a sudden, once you go into that range, you injured yourself. The same goes with your back or your shoulder. As soon as you go past that range that you have that you're strong in, then that is where the injury is most likely to happen and your weak link. And in the real world, life doesn't put you in predictable situations. You aren't moving controlledly. You have to, when you are going down a steep hill or you lose your footing and you're slipping down, you have to be able to decelerate. And if you're not able to do that successfully, then you're gonna go into that extended range and get injured. When I was in that disabled state, I often think to myself, if I didn't wasn't living in modern day life and I was living 1,000 years ago, would I even be able to survive? And so it got me thinking, then actually, can anybody in our society now, would they be the weakest person in a tribe 1,000 years ago? Because they would actually have to be able to be good at all these different areas. They would have to be able to go for long distances, to be able to hunt, be able to flee when there's disasters, find shelter if there's a strong storm coming, be able to fend for themselves. Most people, they'll go to the gym, work out extremely hard, but then that's only for a small amount of time. And then they're sitting on the couch resting in the evening, or they're sitting at a desk job. And so they are lacking that longevity of that time frame where they would be physically active. You are not built for this anymore. I don't know about you, but I always like to watch natural disaster movies. There's something about it that just draws me in, that emotional intensity. And these movies are like Geostorm, Greenland, 2012, and the plot of the movie is normally always very similar. There is a father who is trying to take care and save his family in this disastrous situation. And then there are always the bandits who are out there to take your food and supplies and anything that they can, because everybody is out for themselves. It is the survival of the fittest at that point. Out of all the different dangerous situations you could be in, what I have learned about years of my recovery journey about injuries is that injury will be your downfall. If you get injured, the chances of survival go way down. Imagine, even not in a huge disaster scenario, but where you're hiking and all of a sudden you break your ankle and you have no help, no self service. How would you get yourself out of that situation? How would you be able to walk for miles to find shelter to the nearest village? Or how would you be able to find simple survival necessities such as food and water while you're out there? And of course, you can prepare all you would like, but the truth is, you can always be in a situation like this. So, if your gym training is not preparing you for the real world, then how do you actually bulletproof your body, become resilient, be strong, and ready for that type of situation? Well, firstly, you have to understand the law of adaptation. Your body becomes what you repeatedly do, for better or for worse. Sit all day and you have tight hip flexors, your glutes shut off, and you're immobile. You can't move well. 1,000 years ago, if you're living in a tribe, you would have to be able to hunt. You would have to be able to carry water and be able to get wood and build a fire and things like that. Now, I'm not going to teach you how to do all that, but physically, humans have developed two things that they're elite in across all other different species. And these are the ability to run extremely long distances, that is for their endurance, and their ability to carry heavy loads for long distances. So train your endurance and your stamina. You can do this by rucking, is a great activity because most likely you would have a backpack and you'd have to be able to carry things for a long distance, as well as running, picking up running and building up that endurance to be able to run for long distances with a steady pace. And this will create efficiency, and you'll actually get so many different benefits from this training alone. Then there is the ability to flex and be able to brace and hold that spine as well. This could be rotation exercises where you're doing extension or anti-extension. You're basically working your abdominal stabilizers, both in the front, your abs, and your back stabilizers, your QLs, your rector spinae as well. All these different muscles that will help you be able to keep a strong spine, protecting it in case that you're in an unpredicted situation that would cause an injury. Because if your spine moves uncontrollably, a back injuries is one of the worst injuries you can have, because your spine is a neural pathway for your brain and it controls so many different parts of your body. That's why back pain can be one of the worst types of pains that you can experience. Next is the iron clay principle. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So if you have wrist issues, maybe you have some shoulder pain or a nagging back ache, anything, this is easily your weak link. And if you don't know what your weak link is, then I'll show you a way to find it out later in this video. In the gym, you can hide these weak links easily because you train around them. You do your favorite lifts and you avoid putting your body in certain positions. That's why you are weak in them under the law of adaptation. But in life, in the real world, when you're out in different terrain, this is bound to find that weak link and put you in that position. And as soon as you are, that's when something breaks. You get injured and you're done for. Think about a horse that breaks its leg. After it breaks its leg, it is no good. And so are you if there is no help coming. You also have to understand the iron scales principle. You have to balance opposing muscles like your hamstrings and your quads, your biceps and your triceps, your pecs and your back. All these different muscles, there are like a teeter-totter. And if one of them is heavier than the other, then it's no longer balanced. It's like it's going to be going on a tug of war in your body. And this is often why many people feel tight in a certain area, is because one is stronger than the other and they're not evenly balanced. And so when you rely on a muscle that should be doing the job of another, then all of a sudden you're going to have certain things compensating. They're going to get more fatigued because they're doing a job of another muscle. And when you are pushing your limits and you are in a fatigue state, this tightness gets worse and worse and worse. And you can think about the movie Coach Carter. It had a lot of A players on the team, but when they were fighting against each other, when the stakes were on, they would lose. And the same thing goes for you. If the stakes are high and your muscles are not balanced, then you are also going to have some problems. Then there is the field ready principle. Are you ready for the field? What the different conditions are? Are you training in all the different movement planes and all the different areas your body is supposed to move in? And again, if you're not strong in these, then this is where an injury is going to happen. Understanding these principles is the fundamentals. It is the foundation. So what does this actually look like when you're programming your workouts? Well, you're not just throwing a whole bunch of exercises in your training that you're doing already, because you probably already have goals that you're working towards and you don't want to just throw all that out. And you also have to keep in mind maximum recovery capacity. If you're just throwing a whole bunch of extra volume in, it's not doing you any good. You're just digging yourself into the ground most likely and not getting much stronger. Here are 4 exercise examples that you can supplement that still build strength and hypertrophy. So if you're doing a standard barbell curl or a cheek curl and you are loading up that barbell heavy trying to grow your biceps, well, throw this one out and do something that is more real world practical and building a lot more strength and having a lot more benefits without throwing away the strength and hypertrophy. That would be the Thor hammer pickup. You are putting a stretch on the brachialis. You are putting your wrists in an end range, extended range position, and you are also driving with your hips. You're working in a different plane, movement plane, following the field ready principle. So there's a lot more benefits to this exercise, and you'll see so much better gains just by doing that alone rather than a standard barbell curl. And then there is like the skull crusher when you're laying on a bench doing a tricep extension. Throw this one out and do something like a cable wood splitter where you are having a little bit of rotation and anti-extension as well, following the structural integrity code, as well as the field ready principle with moving in a different plane, as well as the iron scales principle, where now you're balancing your triceps and your biceps as well. So you can also load up this exercise and you will see amazing benefits from it. And in the real world, people would be doing this by chopping wood and being able to build this types of strength in their arms, both their bicep and their triceps, while being able to train the nervous system to actually fire the muscles in the right sequence that is going to give you the greatest strength and how you would actually use these muscles in a real world scenario. And if you're doing a squat or a leg lift, especially, throw that out and supplement it with something putting yourself in a rounded back position. And of course, I'm not saying to not do lifts with the neutral spine, but you following that iron scales principle in the structural integrity code, you want to make sure that you're bracing your spine in different positions. So having that rounded back position, such as a keg squat, a sandbag squat, or if you just have access to a barbell, do the Zercher squat. And instead of doing a bent knee calf raise on a machine that have very little benefit, why don't you do a Zercher squat and do a bent knee calf raise in the Zercher squat position? Because now you are training your mobility, being in that deep squat while having the rounded back, building your structural integrity, and you are now also still maintaining that ability to train that portion of the calves. So you're getting so much more out of just swapping that exercise with another. Training like this has made me feel better than when I was 18 years old, when I was heavily into bodybuilding and I trained still athletically, following programs like Jeff Cavalier's from Athlean X and all his training programs. I also was heavily into martial arts at the time, and doing all this types of training that I'm doing right now just hasn't just bulletproofed my body from being in a disabled state, but also has me feeling better, stronger, and more resilient than I did when I was 18 years old. If you're still here, I ask you to ask this question to yourself. If you were living in a tribe 1,000 years ago, would you be the weakest person in the tribe? Not because of how much weight you're able to lift, but rather, are you built for everyday survival? Would you be physically strong enough to survive on your own if there was no help coming? Would you be strong enough to survive a disastrous situation? Train to be ready for anything. Just like I promised you, if you still need some help identifying your weak links, I have something that I created for you. It's called the Iron Body Assessment. It'll be able to walk you through and do some simple tests to find out what is your weak link. That's how you become strong, resilient, and bulletproof. You fix the weakest link, one link at a time. And over time, that entire chain will get stronger and stronger and more resilient to all different conditions and environment that you'll be put in. Want to not only become strong, but also resilient? Hit subscribe and come on this journey with us and forge yourself a body of iron.